I heard a great term used for blockchain. It's the automation of trust.
I love it. Yes.
You know, yeah, like you automate the trust. Like you don't have to. It's immutable. You know for certain that what has been recorded has been recorded.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Relevant Agent Podcast. This is going to be a really exciting one. I know that Alex and I, this is something that you and I have been talking about, buddy, for a while. This is kind of right up our alley, and we're super excited to have a guest today that's going to dive into the incredible, real impact that crypto, AI, and marrying those technologies in that space into a disruptive element into the real estate space. And I think that as much as a lot of people want things to stay the same, in today's discussion, we're really going to dive into how it's really not feasible to hold on to that kind of mindset anymore. What do you think, Alex? Are you excited about this one?
I'm excited, man. I've spoken with Lauren and kind of been looking at a little bit of this project before I spoke to her. It's been in the back of my head, and I think it's all come to a head right now. I'm excited for this pod.
Well, with that, without any further ado, of course, Lauren, is it Braille?
It is, yes.
Lauren Braille from Proppy Title. Lauren, tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you got involved with Proppy.
Yeah, absolutely. So about 7 years ago, I started as a real estate agent at a disruptive brokerage. So I've kind of always been in the disruptive world. Being there after a few years, I ended up transferring over into a traditional realm, or more traditional realm, I should say, in terms of being an agent, and had a small team under me at that point in time. And then this summer, actually, when I moved down to Florida, I decided to get out of being an agent and moved into the title world. And the company that I'm with now, Proppy, is a very disruptive title company. And you'll kind of see as we're going through today what we do differently than other traditional title companies that really help agents to grow their business and to be a lot more efficient in their business as well.
So walk us through this real quick, especially if in case somebody's not 100% familiar with how you're implementing the technology into the traditional way that we handle title. Like Alex and I, you as well, because you have that real estate background, we understand what that process looks like in terms of, getting something under contract and getting it closed, and the timeline and the tasks that have to happen under that title work. So where does the technology then, and where does Proppy specifically show up that is different from the way we do it now? Really kind of specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have the transaction management platform here that makes it very easy to open up escrow. All agents have to do is upload an executed contract onto the platform, and it opens up escrow immediately. So it's kind of powered by smart contracts and by AI in the background. But what this allows agents to do is open up escrow 24/7. So when they're going under contract on the weekends, they're able to open up escrow Friday night at 10 p.m. instead of having to wait until Monday morning when the banks and the title companies open, which is huge. And with that too, because we do have AI assisting us in the background, agents are still going to work with a live escrow officer. However, they have the help of AI. So we're able to actually close deals on average about 30% faster than your traditional title company.
So I put in a contract into the system on Friday night or whatever, when traditionally you're not going to get anybody to answer the phone over at the title company to say, I'm sending this over, and nobody's eyeballs are looking at it. But then how does it, what work is being done between Friday night, let's call it, to Monday morning till a live person in the traditional sense starts to look at it? What kind of work is being done in that space?
Yeah, absolutely. So as soon as you go under contract and the contract is dropped onto the platform, like I said, escrow opens up immediately. So what that ends up kind of triggering is an email goes out to all parties saying, here's the platform, log in. And from there, buyers are actually able to submit their earnest money via ACH versus having to deal with wire transfers, which we know we have to do while the banks are open. So as of right now, our record is actually 8 minutes from the time an executed contract was dropped onto the platform until earnest money was deposited. It only took 8 minutes for that buyer to get their earnest money in, and that was done on a Saturday. So it's much more efficient. In addition to that, too, our escrow officers, bless their hearts, they tend to work all around the clock. So even though, there's certain things that they're not able to take care of outside of traditional business hours, right? They are able to do those things that they can kind of get ahead of. So on average, we normally have the title commitment back within 48 hours, which most title companies, you're waiting up to 10 days to get that title commitment back.
So all that chain of ownership, all that work
Could we-
that's happening is going on at that moment. Alex, I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no worries. I'm a very hands-on and like to see. Could we?
Yeah, absolutely. Here, I'll share my screen real quick here for you.
I think that would be helpful for me, Eddie. I like the verbal stuff, but I always like to touch.
Hey, I hear you, man. Let's do it.
Absolutely. All right. Gentlemen, can you see my screen?
Yes.
There we go. Perfect. All righty. So when you log on to your platform, really what you are going to first see is going to be this page right here. So actually, hold on one second. Somehow or another, it went to the wrong page. Give me just a sec. Okay, you're going to actually see this page right here. So this is the page, like I said, this is where you upload those contracts. So you're under contract, buyer is signed, seller is signed, all that jazz. We've got a deal. You're just going to upload this contract right here, and that's when escrow opens. With that, too, we do have a listing platform over here. That one thing that does set us apart as well is that we are able to close on cryptocurrency transactions, but our listing platform brings about 50,000 eyeballs onto it every month that are buyers looking to purchase with crypto. So that's kind of what sets that marketplace aside. It's going to act just like any other third-party service, right? Your Zillows, your realtors of the world, things along those lines. Very simple to use. And with this too, this is where AI really starts taking hold. Once you start receiving offers, you are actually going to see where AI is going to start spitting out a summary of terms. So this is going to be more or less a pros and cons list for an agent to bring to their sellers to show them the differences in each offer. Obviously, right now, those days of having multiple offers have kind of fallen by the wayside temporarily, but I know that they'll end up coming back sooner or later. I know that when I was an agent, I was doing this all manually in an Excel spreadsheet. So it's a huge time saver for agents to be able to just utilize this platform. I should mention, too, that this platform can be made visible to all parties. So it can be made visible to the seller. It can be made visible to the buyer. Of course, they're going to have different visibilities depending on what party they are in the transaction. But also AI, too, though it's uploading the full offer letter, it spits out this one pager that is a lot more digestible for a seller to read through versus reading through a 15-page long offer letter that they have no clue what it means. Once you are actually under contract, you are going to upload, like I said, you've already uploaded that whole executed contract on that first homepage. You can also do it up here on the Create Transaction button. And over here in the transactions side of things, you are going to actually see where we are going to totally timeline the entire transaction as well. So again, AI does all of this. It's going to spit out all of the timeline for you. So as sellers are sitting in bed at 10 p.m., and wondering when the appraisal is due, they're able to just log into their platform real quick and take a look versus having to reach out to their agent to say, when was the appraisal date again? And as I was mentioning before, how they are able to do it via ACH, this is where buyers are going to then put in their earnest money as well. That's basically the bulk of this platform. It's super user-friendly to use. That's kind of where we're at. But
So, Lauren, for the audience out there, just so we're clear, they don't have to know how to use crypto, or they don't even have to, like, you're a traditional title company that integrates AI. The crypto stuff aside, which we're going to get into here in a sec with someone else, just to status out the audience. You guys are a traditional title company that's issuing, title insurance that a bank would suffice for a bank.
Yes, absolutely. So over here, 99% of what we do is going to be your traditional title work. It's got a mortgage or it's a cash deal. Those traditional deals are going to be the bulk of what we do. However, we do have that side where we are able to close on those cryptocurrency transactions.
So you're showcasing. Cool.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was
I was going to say.
That I should mention is that after closing, not only do we record deeds with the county, but we also record them on the blockchain, which just gives sellers and buyers that extra layer of security.
So really, for the consumer who's using the platform, for them, it's not really much different. It's really the technology behind it. But to Alex's point, it's not technology necessarily that they're involved in, or they need to know about crypto, or they need to know about AI. They don't. And what do you say to anybody who's is still weary about the technology as a whole and how accurate this could be, how safe it could be? Where are those checks and balances for people that still like to hear that maybe a real person is still looking at this stuff?
Yes, absolutely. So that's kind of a threefold question. So I've got three different things to share on that. But like I said, you're still going to be working with a live escrow officer. Depending on what location you're in, you'll have that introduction already to that escrow officer and start building that relationship with them. This just helps aid in the process of getting it going quicker. Other thing too that I want to mention is that as far as, the fear surrounding AI, I suppose, a couple of weeks ago, actually, we had a guy who is an investor. He only does his own deals. So he had never actually written a contract before. And he dropped his contract that was a handwritten contract onto the platform, and AI still was able to pull out all of the things accurately. So that just goes to show just how accurate this actually is. And of course, because you have that other set of eyes, being a set of human eyes, they're always double checking over everything too, just to make sure that something didn't go awry. So yeah, that kind of hopefully that answers that question a little bit.
Yeah, and
that's huge.
And Alex, did you have another follow-up? Because I had one more question.
Go.
Yeah, man. So, Lauren, how does this all tie into Proppy tokens?
Yeah, so Proppy tokens is more or less the crypto side of our company. Proppy is the umbrella, think of it that way. And then we have Proppy title, and then we have what's called Proppy keys, which is what the Proppy tokens are. As I mentioned before, we are able to close on those cryptocurrency transactions. We were the first in the business to ever close on an NFT property. We were the first to close on a full cryptocurrency transaction. And as you're actually using the platform, I'm happy to go through it in a little bit more depth with agents if they want to come to me directly. But as you're going through the platform, you have the ability to earn cryptocurrency by using the platform and by referring agents over to us. So that's how we reward our agents and say thank you, right? Right now, we actually have our own token. It's called the Proppy token, PRO, if you will. And that's what we reward agents in. So
smart. I like that just from the business.
Yeah, it's great, right, Eddie? I mean, it's part of the reason that we are with EXP, because we're getting compensated and we have ownership in the company. So just as a side, so everybody, again, out there, you don't have to know anything about NFTs or crypto or any of that stuff. This is a traditional title company. However, if you do have that mind of disruption and ownership, this has that, which we're going to get into Elias here in a second, kind of to unpack more of on the NFT side and that. But I love it. I will, as a disclaimer, I do own some Proppy. Because I believe in kind of cool projects like this and kind of have it as a small little allocation, not like I do my BTC or anything, but I think it's just such a cool project, and I think this is the way that the whole industry is
Yes,
going.
that's what our hope is too.
Well, thank you, Lauren. This was really really helpful, and I think for me the biggest takeaway is whenever you're introducing new technology, it's important to calm fears. Fears are sometimes are just unfounded, and so with our conversation today, and that was one of the goals that Alex and I had, was to kind of bring it forward, but not make it this scary animal in the closet. That understand that there's still people involved, but it's just a way to continue to adapt and adopt relevant technology, like the way Proppy does, and to help us streamline everything we do and really provide a much better service in the end for everyone involved.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and we're always here for education too. So happy to kind of walk people through it.
Well, thanks again, Lauren. This was really insightful, and
For having me. It was great.
absolutely. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye.
Thanks, Lauren.
That was great. I mean, as Elias comes in now to kind of go into the next, what was your takeaway, real quick, Alex, on that?
I did the presentation with her the other day, and what strikes me the most, just with like the disruptive side, there's two disruptive sides. There's the integration of the AI, and I didn't hear that the other day about the written contract. So the AI is actually, some old timer, and we were talking with Elias yesterday about Rolodexes and so forth. I can't believe that there's people out there that are actually still writing contracts. But that aside, that the AI was that intuitive to be able to discern, the written language from typing, that's pretty incredible. And that it is a traditional title company, so it's kind of like you can dip your toe into disruption without going completely all in and going, I need to learn everything new here. This is and it's interoperable with mortgage and all that. It's not so disruptive that it's like, hey, you're putting your title on blockchain, as Elias is going to start to talk to us more about here. This is traditional title, bringing in that AI with an aspect of the crypto. I think it's a beautiful bridge that kind of marries the traditional world with the new world we're rolling into.
Yeah, is that Elias? First of all, welcome. Thanks for being here with us. Is that how you see it? Do you see it? I see it as a very elegant dipping of the toe into the industry without completely going full on, where people get lost, don't understand, get scared, don't adopt the way we want them to adopt, or at least the way I'd like to see us as an industry continue to adopt. What is your sense of that?
No, I agree wholeheartedly. And once again, just really quick, thank you for having myself and Lauren on to kind of discuss these topics, because I know that they're not really they're front of mind, but they're not getting discussed quite enough, right? Even though it is sometimes the elephant that's in the room. And because of that, consumers, they're very fickle when it comes to new things. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So we realize that to disrupt an industry, you have to do it from the inside out, and you can't just go to a consumer. We're not Apple. We're not Steve Jobs. We can't have the mentality of the consumer doesn't know what they want until you present it to them, right? That doesn't work for everybody, unfortunately. So when it comes to these things, these systems have been in place for millennia, quite literally, with deeds and titles. So the way that we're presenting it is in a very palatable way. Some people right now are still trying to get over the fact that we're fully digital, because I think if it weren't for the pandemic forcing people to go virtual, that in and of itself would still be a very uphill battle, because people have been ingrained to the tradition of going to a closing table, of going into the title company and taking the picture of the new key of we said yes to the house. Like those kinds of things that have been ingrained into the consumer's mind for years and years and years. So to answer your question, Eddie, yes, we're dipping we're more got the leg into the water, I would say, at this point in time. But once consumers have, meaning real estate agents as well as their buyers and sellers, kind of like, oh, well, that was a really smooth closing process. Let's do that again and again. And then they start to see the value, and they start to ask questions of like, well, what else do you have to offer? Because my title.
Well, that's a great that's a great spot to pick up from. Not to interrupt you, but we started with Lauren, and specifically in the title space, and kind of that very practical, easy, at least for us, easy to understand way to introduce the technology into the real estate space. But from a larger umbrella, just real quick, Elias, could you please tell us a little bit about, there's title, there's keys, and there's ink, of course. How do those three segments live inside of Propy, and what has been your journey into Propy, and why it first kind of rang a bell for you?
Yeah, no, I love the question. So the ecosystem is as follows. It is Propy Inc. is the tech side of what supplies the actual Web3 prop tech, which is the platform, to our own title and escrow agency, Propy Title. Okay. So then when we talk about Propy Keys within that ecosystem, Propy Keys is what is used to actually bring these addresses and mint them on chain, and then use to actually tokenize the actual address itself as the property, as a RWA NFT. So we kind of have this whole ecosystem where the Web 2 consumer can live and the Web 3 consumer can live, and they can both live in harmony if they so choose, to where it's not just going to the Web 2 consumer and saying, hey, we have this new technology, we're going to beat you over the head with it. Not what we want to do. So
I knew I want to stop you there, Bud. It's just real quick for the audience that I knew you were going to go down this. We got to be careful with jargon, right? So explain to the audience, please, what's Web 2 and what's Web 3? Just get like it.
So let me give a little more context. Sorry, sometimes I get off the rails with technological terms.
We can get into, we always in our own industry get jargon out there, and we so people know what we're talking.
Make it really brief in terms of what Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3 are. So if you look at like Web 1 as just read, as just when the internet first came about, and then when Web 2 came about, it's read write in terms of information and data. So think about website customability, think Facebook, think MySpace, think those kinds of things where you're able to put your own data on the actual web and use it. Then think of Web 3 as a paradigm shift of that ownership to now where it's read, write, own, right? So Web 3 is a completely different infrastructure of technology. So for those listeners out there, that's really what it means when somebody's talking Web 3. And then sometimes you'll hear people refer to it as like Web 2.5, where people are trying to come with interoperable solutions to try to bridge the gap of a technological solution that is Web 2 into a Web 3 world that is blockchain, for example. Yeah. And then
sorry, I just want
no, I appreciate it, Alex. Thank you. And just backpedaling to answer Eddie's question. So I've been in the real estate space and tech space for the better part of almost, since 2010, really. And it's something that I'm very passionate about, the both real estate and technology as a whole, and specifically on the tech side, AI and blockchain. And I first became aware of Propy when they did the world's first real estate NFT sell recording the world's first deed on chain back in 2018, 2019. And I had this aha moment that what Propy was doing was the future for real estate just as a whole, and that the technology was a match made in heaven for real estate when we think of smart contracts and automations, because these efficiencies are needed for real estate. So I attempted to, at the time, proselytize the technology to the company I was with, and kind of just got roadblocked. I said, okay, well, the train has left the station. I'm going to go chase it and try to jump onto it. And that's exactly what I did with Propy. And the rest is history. I've just been on board full steam ahead, trying to accomplish this mission of bringing property rights on chain, meaning that to be on chain is to be on blockchain. And for your listeners out there, just to give that kind of tech perspective and context, blockchain technology, the reason that it's so valuable and provocative is because it's not something that's compromisable. It's not a database or a decentralized ledger that can be hacked. Okay. So because of that, it is immutable, it's transparent, and it offers layers of security that completely mitigate away title fraud, deed fraud, wire fraud as well.
So for those of, again, back to kind of Alex's point, for those that are not so familiar with the terminology, the immutable, it's really, we're talking about security. We're talking about making things safer, more accurate, certainly faster, but without giving up any of that sense, of course, of security for the end consumers. Like, who's checking this stuff, right? And I know that's kind of, if we really brought it down to a very basic thought process, is like a lot of people wonder, who's checking this? How do I know this is secure? How do I know my money is secure? Especially when someone is not necessarily that familiar with the technology, to assure them that that's one of the huge benefits, of course, of the technology, is that it ensures and just can't be messed with the chain of title and the security, not only in terms of what money is being deposited and how it's being moved around, for that end consumer to feel like this is where we're going, and it's to your benefit, Mr. and Mrs. Consumer.
100%, Eddie. I mean, I don't think people realize, because it's not that front of mind for them. It may be a story on the local news here or there, how Mr. Anderson, the 86-year-old elderly person down the road, lost their house because of title fraud, because of quitclaim deeds. But people don't realize how easy it is for somebody to perpetrate and commit title fraud. All it literally is just, I could walk into the recorder's court, close my eyes and go into a phone book and pick a victim and go and record different records. There's no interoperable checks and balances there whatsoever. They're not QAing any of this information. And then from there, I'm able to go and perpetrate mortgage fraud as well. So it's very scarily easily to do these things. And it's not an issue until it becomes an issue for you when you're a victim of it, unfortunately. So it's really scary how easy it is to commit these kinds of fraud. And I don't think the average consumer really realizes how easy it is.
So
Yeah, we one of the things that's happened in the last couple of years is we've had literally we've gotten hit with a couple. The land has been a big scam, and people perpetrating the seller. It's pretty incredible that actually some of these have actually closed. Like, it closed through escrow from a fraudster that was acting as the seller. And monies actually went to that person that was not the seller. I mean, these scams have gotten very, very intricate and devious. And so, I think this is another thing of, to your point here, like, I heard a great term used for blockchain. It's the automation of trust.
I love it. Yes.
Like, you automate the trust. Like, you don't have to. It's immutable. You for certain that what has been recorded has been recorded. So, Eddie, sorry I cut you off there, but I did want to drop that because we've had that over the last couple of years, especially, and I'm sure it happened before that, before even things got a little more digitized. To your point, but keep going, Eddie.
no, listen, no, you're spot on, brother. I mean, the reason why I was, what I'm trying to do in this conversation is to keep it simple enough and friendly enough so that people understand. At least in my mind, my goal is to have people understand. And when I say people, I'm talking about the consumer and also the real estate agent. Because one of my next questions is going to be, how is Proppy interacting with agents in a way that explains, demonstrates the value, and obviously encourages them to use the platform. But my goal with this conversation is to really simplify things, because sometimes I feel, especially for those that are not aware, that this is this kind of woo-woo magic thing that's still out there that people are experimenting with and maybe is not to be trusted yet. So we're in our own little bubble here. The three of us, we understand exactly all the terminology that's being used and how it is effective. And we come from a real estate background, so we know the traditional way of the way things are being done. So we quickly are like, of course, this industry is ripe for disruption, and property is going to be a leader in that space because it makes perfect sense to start with contracts. That's what it's best suited to do, is to maintain a chain of authenticity and security. That's it at its core. Like, you cannot dispute its findings because it is what it is. And that level of security is what people pay for. That's why title insurance exists. I'm paying insurance to make sure this is my house, to make sure just trying to bring it back to a very granular level. Like, what does this mean? Well, this is going to absolutely ensure that, to your point, Liz, that no one can come in and wire money to the wrong person or send it or pretend that they bought X when they actually didn't buy X. They own a little piece of Y. All of that goes away. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to help people understand, is that the technology is perfect for this, and the timing and where we are as an industry is also perfect for this. Yeah, I mean, that's really my intention with this conversation. What else? What other kind of? Yeah.
Well, no, I was just gonna just to wrap up that point and topic, is at a very granular level with what we're doing right now with title. It's to disrupt that industry in the sense that the value proposition is, down the road, once it's been disrupted, there wouldn't be a need for title insurance whatsoever. So think about how much of a consumer cost that is, within the thousands sometimes, right? Because blockchain, the deed and title being on chain, would act as a warranty because everything else is mitigated away, right? So the consumer would be able to put those thousands of dollars back into their pocket. They would be able to use it as a down payment or use it for something else. Title insurance is just such an unnecessary and cumbersome cost of closing for a consumer. And it's time to be disrupted. And that's what we're doing. So I just wanted to kind of just tie that topic off with a nice little bow and just set it off to the side, because I know that you're wanting to maybe kind of digress into some other topics as well.
I love that you went there. What is the value that, other than security, which is great, but like numbers wise, dollars wise, for a buyer, if they were going to pay title, to your point, like that title insurance goes back into their pocket. And then the seller, if they're paying title, which a lot of times here in Florida, I would say probably 80% of our contracts, the seller's paying title. It's another cost that comes out of their pocket. So it's a real benefit eventually. Eddie, I'm going to ask a question here, just kind of, I don't think this is fully bundled up. Where do you think we are as far as, like, let's say Web 1, right? And let's say that was AOL, sending emails back and forth through AOL. And then obviously, that moved into websites, and then into your point, kind of getting out into the MySpaces and so forth. But where are we, in your opinion, in, let's say, 9 innings, as far as this actually being kind of starting to get into the mainstream? Like, where are we in that game, if you will?
Well, I think we are finally there. I think we are at the bottom of the 8th, going into the 9th inning. And I think we're about to get into that 9th inning right now. I think that we have taken the lead. I really do think, just to kind of keep things very neutral, I'm very confident with a lot of what is being talked about right now on Capitol Hill with legislation and regulation that's going to be in favor of the technology, because that's really been the key missing components for so long when we talk about cryptocurrency, because a lot of what it can be or can't be, is it a commodity? Is it a security? How is it taxed? Is it property? So once regulation is a little more clearly defined, then we can really, the whole industry can just move forward full steam ahead. So to answer your question, I think we're there finally. I really think, after years of waiting patiently, I think we're there. I think we're in the bottom of the 8th, about to go into the 9th inning, and I just think it's about to be just a complete blowout in the ninth inning of where it just becomes consumer centric. Everybody's there, and it just makes sense in a very decentralized way.
So you mentioned something about regulation there. So, this is not a political channel at all. With Trump coming in, getting up there at Bitcoin, there in Tennessee, Bitcoin conference, the National Bitcoin Conference, saying, my first day will fire Gary Gensler, who, Gary Gensler, head of the SEC, has really gone after. I mean, he okayed BTC, Bitcoin, for the ETF, obviously, but nothing else, right? So what you're saying is you believe that new chair, that if he follows through, and which we think he probably will, in firing Gary Gensler and hiring somebody who's going to be more pro crypto and really instituting legislation, regulation on these various tokens. And then do you think that's gonna be the real like last headwind that's gonna move this industry into the mainstream, this crypto, specifically what we're talking about here, with Proppy being now considered a security or whatever it is considered, and now you got mainstream adoption? You think that's kind of the last big headwind?
100%. I mean, look at what Senator Loomis was saying just at her summit. Within the first 100 days, she wants to present legislation for there to be a national Bitcoin reserve. The reason that Gensler even approved the ETF is because he was being pressured a lot from, BlackRock and all the other folks out there that were wanting this ETF. So he's getting pressure from Wall Street, So, I mean, the institutions, they want it. So the government now is at a point where they're going to have to just acquiesce and create legislation expeditiously. And with Trump coming in, he is very, very, very bullish on not just Bitcoin, but the technology as a whole, because it's not necessarily, he does see the potential of it, but it's also the people that are directly around him that are also pushing this as well. I mean, that's a whole other can of worms we could open up, with that base being very blockchain and Bitcoin friendly. But yeah, to answer your question, simply put, wholeheartedly, I think within the first 100 days, we're going to see some major changes that are going to be very in favor of the industry as a whole. Because what will happen is it's going to take institutional players to onboard retail. So once retail has been onboarded, then it's just, they're there. I mean, look at how long it took for online banking to become a thing when it was first put out. From the flow of physical checks to signature cards to online banking to tap to pay. Look how long it took for that flow for the adoption. So I think we're going to see a much quicker adaptation within the first couple of years of this new administration, which will be nice.
I sold a car the other day, and the guy brought me cash. And I stared at the cash, and I thought, just, how when you have those thoughts, not really conscious thoughts, but just kind of real kind of quick glancing thoughts, like, this is weird, this paper stuff. Oh yeah, this is money. It just in that little instant, it's like, yeah, but I don't really touch this. I'm usually just Apple Paying everything. I'm just tapping my phone to things.
But now you have Eddie, you can go to the ATM down here on US 1, just over the Roosevelt Bridge, put your phone in, put that old paper money in, a QR code, and now you can change it for a bit.
Yeah,
right?
I have yet to use those. Have you done them? Have you used them?
ATM help.
I have yet to use it.
Yeah.
Have you?
Be careful, because like some of them, like the one, the ATM I used to go and drink at the Elbow Room, they had service charges, Elias, that were $25 because everybody was so hammered that they did like a transaction fee of $25, But so you got to be careful about which ATM you go to, because some of them, especially it's so sad, in some of the less affluent parts of town, let's put it that way. That ATM, the other day I went to one, I was like, Bitcoin 109,000. So they'd put Bitcoin at 109,000. So they're taking this huge differential. So anyways, just as a side note, you got to be careful, head on a swivel, be educated. The ATM here in Stewart is Bitcoin at spot. So as a side.
So Elias, as we talk about the future, and obviously you're obviously very excited about being part of Proppy. You're excited about where the technology is going, where you guys are positioned right now. I agree that I think that it's going to just continue to be a very friendly environment for continued growth in this industry. What does Proppy have on their short list of going after next, or what other maybe some new innovations beyond what they're doing right now?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're pushing full steam ahead, a couple of different products. So we just announced crypto escrow services. So for clients, so some context for your listeners. So I think it's safe to assume that majority of people have at least heard about what Coinbase is. That's the exchange where you go to buy the cryptocurrencies, right? So Coinbase Institution, Coinbase Prime, is our custodian for when we use crypto for cryptocurrency deals. If somebody's wanting to buy or sell a house using crypto. So one of these products that we have called Crypto Escrow is if you have a client that doesn't want to liquidate their position, for just to give some context, Mayor Suarez down in Miami, he used Bitcoin to buy his first house. Well, to do that, he had to exit his position. He had to liquidate his Bitcoin to accomplish that. Well, with us, it's different. You're able to actually put that Bitcoin up for escrow and even use it as earnest money deposit, locking it in at that value to where you don't have to liquidate until the actual sale of the house, because if it falls apart, the deal, then you're stuck having to try to either buy more Bitcoin at a higher price. Yeah. So then we're coming up with different products for collateralization, right? So when we talk about something being on chain, it's not just the title that's on chain, right? We could take it a step further. So just to kind of give some context to some terminology that I'm about to use for your listeners. So when we talk about blockchain technology, we're talking about decentralized, meaning that not one central party is ownership of or in control of the data stream, okay? So when we talk about finance, we refer to it as central finance, centralized finance, right? When we talk about central banks, those kinds of things, right? So in the world of blockchain and crypto, we have what's known as DeFi, or decentralized finance, okay? So in the world of DeFi, that's finance that's on chain. So if you were to, and a products that we offer currently now that could be done through our Proppy Keys ecosystem, is somebody could, they can mint their address in a very gamified way, meaning that, look at it as like buying domain names. Okay, so somebody could go and mint addresses on their street, and then when the original owner comes up and says, hey, that's my address, they come through, they validate it as their own through our title. They get a title NFT that shows that that's their validated proof of ownership that they can stick in their wallet, if you will, their Proppy Keys. Then what happens is they could take it a step further and actually tokenize, meaning that they can bring that property through legal structure with the property right on chain. And then what happens is they're able to actually collateralize not just the actual property itself, but they're also able to collateralize their crypto holdings as well for instant DeFi loans. So for your listeners, think about the evolution of a on-chain HELOC or a on-chain reverse mortgage. There's kind of derivative products of investment, right? So when we talk about real estate, we look at it as very illiquid. Real estate is the largest illiquid asset class globally in the trillions, okay? So part of the mission, not to go off the rails here, but just really quick, part of the mission is to democratize housing through and through. So the way to do that is to democratize ownership as well as the liquidity to that ownership as well. So all of that becomes possible in a very transparent and secure and instant way when everything is on chain. You're not, because when you as a homeowner, when you need money, when you're needing to take out equity, You're needing it in that moment. It's not something like, well, I'm going to take it. I'm going to go ahead and start the process because I'm going to need it 2 months from now or 6 weeks from now. No, you need it then because it's when you thought of it. So what we're doing is allowing the consumer to be able to do that with the click of a button very instantly.
And how does adjust
That
I'm sorry, because I want to double click in on that one real quick. How does market value come in on that? So, how is that adjustment made?
So the actual market value is assessed by what was last recorded as well, and then just through. So there are, not to kind of peek too far behind the curtains of what we're going to be announcing, but there are a couple of other tech solutions that we're partnering with, to where the data is daily updated, to where that market value, those kinds of things are updated daily, looking for changes. That way it can go in and actually see value and lock it in those different rates as well.
Got it.
Think of when somebody goes to get approved for, or they're going to get a pre-approval for a mortgage, right? It's kind of like almost the same kind of checks and systems of being able to like lock in true value. So there's a much larger conversation that can be had with that, and how that data stream is actually analyzed to get to that number. But it's done in a very transparent way. To answer the question.
Would that partner have a Z in their name?
No, no Z. No. If we're playing Wheel of Fortune, there is no Z on the board.
Oh, good. That means we can invite you back then.
There you go. But no. So, another products that it's going to be on the roadmap. We are going to be announcing it here relatively soon. So, crypto-backed mortgages are something that we're also going to be offering consumers here relatively soon. So the whole idea is that a consumer can be within our ecosystem, and it's literally the Amazon of real estate. It's a true one-stop shop for a real estate transaction, whether you're a real estate agent or you're just a somebody looking to do a FSBO, just to buy and sell. Doesn't matter who you are. You can buy and sell instantly. You can fund that transaction instantly. You can do whatever you need to do instantly through us and our platform and our ecosystem.
So just real quick, crypto-backed mortgage, would that be, as an example, you could put collateral as your own BTC, Bitcoin, and then you're going to get traditional dollars currency as a loan against your crypto, or
That's one way of doing it. Yeah, that's like kind of like, I don't want to say like more traditional, because it's not traditional; it's newer. But yeah, to use crypto as the backing instrument in that.
Well, I mean, obviously we can go pretty deep for us nerdier guys. But, I really wanted to keep it top level. But with that being said, Elias, first of all, thank you. This has really been incredibly helpful for everyone to understand that this technology is here, that property exists, and that it's transacting real estate in this way, and has obviously an eye towards the future in terms of its growth and its products that are coming. We'd love to have you back. I think this is not a one-time conversation. Alex, do you agree? I mean, this is something we'd love to keep our finger on, for sure. What are your thoughts on that, Alex?
I agree. Yeah, maybe once some of these products start to come out that you're talking about that are behind the curtains a little bit here, have you back on and talk a little bit more about kind of some of the jargon out there. Maybe start to educate the audience, start to educate the public. That's the only way it's going to happen. I think back to when the internet first came, it was just so confusing, right? Like, think about it now of how ubiquitous email is on our phones. But back when AOL was around, it was like, how's this work? What's this? And it's going to be, I think it's just educating. I know I would have to sit there with my dad and go over things. And now I feel like Elias is me trying to educate me as my dad. Like, we would love to have you to continue to come on, man, and continue to educate the public.
Look, I appreciate that, Alex, but I wanted to. So you just brought up a very interesting point when it comes to how to get adaptation for blockchain technology, right? So for years, for those of us that have been in the space, it has been about education, education and education. But what has happened because of that, the user interfaces and user experience of once the consumer lands into the Web3 experience, it's been built by the enthusiasts. It's been built by the college grad students. So it's very MySpace reminiscent. It's very kind of clunky, if you will. So somebody doesn't need to understand how a lithium battery works to understand that a Tesla car is going to get you from point A to point B. So it just needs to be that there's social proof there and that it's a seamless experience to where you're going from what you're used to where it's behind the scenes. You're continue operating just like how you would. It is an experience that is just the user journey. You can't tell a difference transitioning from the traditional to the new. So I think, yes, it's about education, but I also think it's about just having the consumer take that journey and realizing that they're already there. It's like, hey, guess what? You're already there. You're at the destination. So now let's talk about it. Right? So, yeah.
And to your point, Elias, what is the best way for the real estate agent and the consumer at large to get educated regarding property and its services, but also just in the broader sense in terms of the technology? Are you guys offering anything that we could share here?
Yes. So we actually are approved for continuing education classes for blockchain and cryptocurrency and real estate. So we are actually in Florida, Arizona, and Colorado are approved in the 3 states we operate title in. So I believe I'd have to get the exact dates and times, but I want to say December, like mid-December, we're doing our first CE class virtually that's going to be free for those. And it's 3 hours of general CE credits for those that are listening. So that's one thing. And then for those that aren't in the state of Florida, we also offer a crypto certified agent course as well for those agents that are wanting to kind of dive in and learn a little bit more. And then in addition to that, we're always putting out great information on our social media channels. And for anybody that's listening, you can just directly contact myself or even Lauren that was on before me. We're always excited and happy to get to talk about this stuff as well. So yeah.
That's fantastic. I think what we'll do for the benefit of everyone watching today is we'll get those links from you, and then we'll include them in the description. That way people have easy access to it, and hopefully they're able to partake in those classes, because I think that's going to be a really great way to kind of get beyond our initial conversation today and maybe dig into a little more of the resources and how it all works. Because here on the pod, that's the whole point of why Alex and I are doing this is, it's called the Relevant Agent for a reason. We want you to stay as a real estate agent, stay relevant and stay in it if you have any aspirations of being in this industry for any length of time. And so I think this would be an important one that would be worth the agent's time to dive into.
100%, I agree. So Eddie, Alex, thank you so much for including myself and Lauren and Proppy as part of the conversation. That's very exciting. So for your listeners, we're always there for support in any way, shape, or form. So please.
Alex, any closing?
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah.
I was going to say, thanks for coming on. Eddie and I, this is part of how we started this, to his point about the Relevant Agent podcast, but it's stuff that we find very interesting. We are both into crypto ourselves, and but there's still just so much to learn, man. And even going through this conversation, I feel 1% more educated. Because I know there's just so much to learn. But I think you really bundled it all up into that. This is a product that's not going from traditional over to this world, right? Like there's a bridge. So you're doing the traditional title. If somebody just said, hey, I want to dip my toe, go to Proppy Title, check it out. And even if you're working on, well, God, there's the guy that wrote the contract the other day and he's still able to use this. So anybody who's using dot loop, this is no stretch from dot loop, right? You're basically downloading a contract into Property Title. Escrow starts right there. All the ACH is right there. That's the same thing. It's routing numbers, moving money around. You don't have to have Bitcoin or anything else. Like, this is a traditional title company. I love that you have that as one of the core pieces to marry into this, Web3 world and the NFTs. And I think on our next episode, maybe when your newer product comes out, I'm really especially want to hear more about the mortgage side. And I'm very, very intrigued by DeFi. So I think that would be probably a very opportune time. So let us know when, those new products are coming out. We can talk about those. And then I would like to dive in more, because one of the reasons that I actually reached out to you guys specifically is I'm looking to buy property in Costa Rica. Now, you're not doing title in Costa Rica, but I have an interest around fractionalized ownership, which, I hate using a word like that, but it basically is like, well, it's 2 people owning a property or 3 people owning a property. But what you guys are able to do is make it like you could have 1,000 people owning a piece of the property. And that's very, very intriguing to me because I do believe in disruption, and I also believe in ownership. So, you could be literally own $1,000 worth of a property. So somebody doesn't have to, this just brings in the person that's trying to grow financially, and they don't, maybe they don't have $15,000 to put down on a property, $20,000, and but they can own something. And the other aspect I love of what you got here is that, similar to why Eddie and I are with EXP, is we're given some ownership, and you guys are giving back those property tokens. So all it takes is for somebody to continue to get a little educated as a real estate agent and start to add, we'd love you to join EXP and get some ownership with us in that. But that aside, I really believe in ownership, and you guys are creating that opportunity where a transaction, there's a business. What I really like is that there's like a business to business relationship and a mutual benefit. So many title companies, it's like, hey, yeah, bring us title, and the title doesn't bring anything back to the agent other than good service, or hopefully good service. This is a really a bridge for that business to business reciprocal sharing of value. So, man, I love what you're doing.
Appreciate it, Alex. Thank you. And EXP is definitely doing some exciting things as well. So it's always nice when we have Leo and Ariana come and talk at our summit. So they're very insightful. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of EXP, and Alex, maybe we'll have another conversation later of joining EXP. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, we would love to have you, brother, but we loved having you on the pod. Anything you want to end on?
No, I mean, listen, this was great. Thank you again. There's just so much to continue to dive into, moving forward. And again, we love to have you back again and kind of get a part 2 in, because there's a lot more and maybe we can get a little bit more granular with maybe those that are already more advanced in terms of, what's going on in the space. But yeah, and at the same time, catch up as to kind of where the adoption has been, how well it's going, how well people are gravitating to it and using the services. But again, thank you from both of us. And as always, everyone, this is the Relevant Agent Podcast, and we want to continue to bring you this type of education so that you can stay relevant, be successful in real estate moving forward. And we'll see you on the next one.